collective bargaining. And often things tend to get done at the 11th hour. We're getting awfully close to the 11th hour now.
Credit where credit is due. Adam Silver might be the drizzling shits as commissioner of the NBA. I mean, there is a reason I refer to Adam Silver as the worst commissioner in sports. But to his credit, Adam Silver is absolutely brilliant when it comes to polishing the turd. This league is amazing! The WNBA has so much momentum. Fans are clamoring for pretend basketball. We need to get a deal done immediately.
Amid the swirling speculation and criticism, attention has increasingly focused on Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, whose leadership is now under intense scrutiny from commentators and fans alike. In professional sports, commissioners often become lightning rods during periods of uncertainty, because they represent the public face of the league's decision-making structure. Supporters argue that such scrutiny is unfair, noting that complex negotiations and financial strategies involve many stakeholders, not just one executive. Critics, however, insist that ultimate responsibility rests with the person at the top. The pressure surrounding her role has intensified as deadlines approach and speculation spreads about potential outcomes. Some observers suggest that her ability to secure a stable agreement could define her tenure, shaping how history evaluates her leadership. In that sense, the current moment is not merely another administrative challenge but a defining test. Success could reinforce confidence in her direction, failure could invite calls for change. Leadership during turbulent periods requires balancing competing interests, players seeking improved compensation, owners seeking sustainability, sponsors seeking reliability, and fans seeking uninterrupted competition. Navigating those priorities simultaneously is never simple, especially when each group measures success differently. What satisfies one side may disappoint another, forcing leaders to weigh trade-offs carefully. Supporters emphasize that difficult negotiations often look chaotic from the outside but are part of the normal process. They argue that strong leaders are not judged by whether conflict occurs, but by how effectively they guide organizations through it. From that viewpoint, the current tension is less a sign of failure and more a test of resilience. Critics counter that recurring crises indicate structural problems that require more than short-term solutions. Public perception will likely hinge on outcomes. If a deal is reached that satisfies most stakeholders, the narrative could shift quickly from criticism to praise. If talks collapse or delays continue, scrutiny will intensify. That dynamic reflects a common reality in sports governance. Reputations can change rapidly depending on results. For now, her position symbolizes the broader stakes facing the league. She stands at the intersection of expectation and uncertainty, tasked with steering an organization through one of its most closely watched periods. Whether she emerges strengthened or embattled will depend largely on what happens next and on how successfully she can transform pressure into progress.
Interesting. If they're so close to getting a deal done, if Bree Stu isn't worried about her primary income in the WNBA, which is currently being supplemented by the free money that's being given away in Unrivaled, then how come Bree Stu is traveling all the way over to Turkey to be compensated for pretending to play basketball in April? Correct me if I'm wrong here. Normally, training camp in the WNBA dump starts in April, right?
The sense of alarm surrounding the WNBA has intensified dramatically as concerns grow that the league's very foundation is being strained by mounting pressures from multiple directions at once. Critics argue that some of its brightest stars are increasingly choosing to sign lucrative overseas contracts during key periods, a trend interpreted by skeptics as a warning sign rather than a routine career decision. To them, it signals dissatisfaction, financial imbalance, and a widening gap between the league's public optimism and the private calculations players make about their livelihoods. The situation is being framed not as a normal cycle of global basketball movement but as a referendum on the league's ability to retain its own talent when it matters most. Rumors circulating within industry circles suggest that top executives may soon face serious consequences if stability is not restored. These whispers have added a layer of intrigue and tension, implying that leadership accountability could become a central storyline if the situation worsens. Observers note that professional sports organizations often measure success not only by revenue and ratings but also by their capacity to keep elite athletes committed. When even a handful of high-profile players explore alternatives abroad, critics interpret it as a symbolic vote of no confidence, regardless of the player's personal reasons. The anxiety is compounded by timing. Negotiations, scheduling questions, and financial debates are all converging at once, creating the impression of a system under strain. Some analysts warn that perception can be as powerful as reality. If enough people believe a league is in trouble, that belief alone can influence sponsors, broadcasters, and fans. In that sense, the narrative itself becomes a factor shaping events. Still, others caution against apocalyptic interpretations. They argue that international play has always been part of women's basketball economics and does not automatically signal collapse. Yet even those more measured voices acknowledge that the current atmosphere feels unusually tense. The combination of public scrutiny, contract disputes, and speculation about leadership has produced a climate in which every move is analyzed for hidden meaning. What makes this moment particularly significant is that it arrives during a period that was supposed to represent progress. Instead of celebrating stability, the conversation has shifted toward uncertainty. Whether that uncertainty reflects genuine structural risk or simply heightened attention remains debated. But one thing is undeniable: the pressure is real, the spotlight is intense, and the next decisions made by both players and executives could determine whether this period is remembered as a temporary storm or the beginning of a much deeper reckoning.
Me personally, at minimum, I don't see how the WNBA season starts on time, and that is if there is a WNBA season in 2026. We've got, 10 days left in February, which means the WNBA essentially has 2 months until the regular season. Over the next 70, 80 days, they've got to come to an agreement on the CBA. The agreement has to be ratified by lawyers on both sides. They have to organize an expansion draft, then the regular draft.
Stepping back from the immediate drama, the broader picture reveals a league at a pivotal juncture rather than a predetermined downfall. Moments of tension often feel catastrophic while they unfold, yet history shows that many sports organizations experience similar phases before stabilizing. Negotiations stall, criticism intensifies, rumors circulate, and then, sometimes suddenly, agreements are reached and the narrative shifts. The current atmosphere, while undeniably intense, may ultimately prove to be part of that familiar cycle. What makes this moment distinctive is the level of attention surrounding it. Increased visibility means that internal challenges play out under a brighter spotlight than ever before. Every rumor spreads faster, every statement is analyzed more closely, and every decision is interpreted as a signal of larger trends. This heightened scrutiny can magnify problems, but it can also accelerate solutions by forcing stakeholders to act decisively. Another factor is the evolving economics of modern sports. Revenue streams are changing, media consumption habits are shifting, and global opportunities are expanding. These transformations create both opportunities and complications. Players have more options than previous generations, leagues have more platforms to reach audiences, and negotiations must account for possibilities that didn't exist a decade ago. In such an environment, tension is almost inevitable because the rules of the game are still being written. Observers who take a long-term view caution against drawing conclusions too quickly. They note that leagues are resilient institutions capable of adapting when circumstances demand it. Financial models can be adjusted, agreements can be renegotiated, and strategies can evolve. What appears to be a crisis today can become a turning point tomorrow if handled effectively.
Ratified by lawyers on both sides. They have to organize an expansion draft, then the regular draft. Training camp has to be scheduled. You have to schedule a period for free agency. I just don't see how you cram 6 months of off-season activity into 2 months in order to start the regular season on time. It ain't happening. But if I'm the WNBA, I'm not overly concerned with the collective bargaining agreement. I'm damn sure not concerned with overpaying.
Behind the scenes, one of the most pressing issues is the state of collective bargaining negotiations, which insiders describe as approaching a critical deadline. Labor discussions in professional sports frequently stretch to the final hours, but the proximity of this timeline has fueled speculation that disagreements run deeper than usual. The closer talks move toward the cutoff point without resolution, the more observers interpret the delay as evidence of fundamental divisions rather than routine negotiation tactics. Historically, such last-minute bargaining has been a recurring pattern in many leagues, not just this one. Negotiators often hold firm positions until pressure forces compromise. Still, the current situation feels particularly charged because it coincides with heightened public attention. Fans who might normally ignore labor talks are now following developments closely, aware that the outcome could affect scheduling, player participation, and the overall tone of the upcoming season. Analysts note that timing is crucial. When agreements are finalized early, they project stability and confidence. When they drag on, they create uncertainty that can ripple outward. Sponsors may hesitate to commit, broadcasters may adjust programming plans, and fans may delay buying tickets or merchandise until they know what will happen. Even if a deal is eventually reached, the period of doubt can leave a lingering impression. Another concern is morale. Players and staff often operate best when expectations are clear. Extended negotiations can create an atmosphere of suspense, where everyone waits for clarity before making decisions. That environment can affect preparation, training schedules, and strategic planning. While professionals are accustomed to handling pressure, uncertainty adds an additional layer of complexity. Supporters of both sides insist that hard bargaining is necessary to secure fair terms. From that perspective, tension is not a sign of dysfunction but a natural part of the process. Yet critics argue that repeated last-minute negotiations suggest a deeper issue, a lack of alignment on long-term priorities. If each round of talks reaches the brink before resolution, it may indicate that underlying disagreements are never fully resolved. As the clock continues to tick, the negotiations have become more than a contractual matter. They now symbolize the broader question of stability. Whether a deal is reached smoothly or only after intense brinkmanship will shape how this moment is remembered. It could be seen as a routine hurdle or as a warning sign that deeper structural challenges still need to be addressed.
For weeks, I have watched as the media has polished this turd. For example, headline at Sports Illustrated: "Why unrivaled ratings don't tell the full story." And that is the key word. Story. That's what the media is trying to sell with women's basketball. A story, a fairy tale. It's a story of sympathy. It's a story of make-believe. They are trying to convince you that women's basketball is thriving, hoping you will give it a chance, hoping you will.
Public commentary has also drawn attention to the role of high-profile leadership figures, particularly Adam Silver, whose influence over the broader basketball landscape often places him at the center of debate. Some critics accuse him of presenting overly optimistic narratives about the sport's trajectory, arguing that polished messaging can sometimes mask unresolved challenges. They claim that promotional language emphasizing growth and excitement may create expectations that reality struggles to match, leading to accusations of hype outweighing substance. Supporters, however, counter that strong messaging is an essential part of sports leadership. In their view, promoting enthusiasm is not deception but strategy. Professional leagues compete for attention in a crowded entertainment market, and generating excitement is crucial for attracting viewers, sponsors, and media coverage. From this perspective, highlighting positive developments is not an attempt to hide problems but a way to build momentum that can help solve them. The disagreement reflects a broader philosophical divide about the purpose of sports marketing. One side believes transparency about challenges builds credibility, while the other believes emphasizing strengths builds confidence. Both approaches have historical precedents. Some leagues have thrived by openly addressing difficulties, while others have succeeded by projecting unwavering optimism. The effectiveness of either strategy often depends on timing and context. Critics who question leadership messaging argue that perception eventually collides with reality. If fans feel that promotional claims exaggerate progress, trust can erode. They warn that credibility, once lost, is difficult to regain. Supporters respond that no league can afford to dwell publicly on its weaknesses, especially during growth phases when attracting new audiences is vital.